We are just about a week away from the NBA trade deadline, and the Jimmy Butler drama is heating up. He is currently the biggest domino. Will he be dealt? Or maybe the question is, when will Jimmy Butler be dealt? And a new rumor suggests that the Sixers could swoop in and try to pull away Jimmy Butler from Miami. We'll look at the financial perspective, but should they try to get themselves involved in the Jimmy sweepstakes? We'll look at that, another big NBA trade rumor, and more. But welcome into Philly Take with RB. I'm RB. Do me a favor, like the video if you enjoy this content and subscribe to the channel. We cover the Sixers and NBA every single day. And I want to start it off with a guy who is here right now, a young star who is on the floor, and he's been very impressive. Tyrese Maxey was magnificent last night. 43 points, barely played in the fourth, and he's officially back. All right, averaging over 30 in his last 10 games. He now has a career best 11 straight 25-plus point games. He's back. He's locked in. He's focused. And I talked about this on the postgame show last night, but I think Maxey has now hit his breaking point where he's like, you know what? I'm just going to go out there, play my game. Whoever's on the floor next to me, whoever's not, I don't care anymore. You know, I'm Tyrese Maxey. Let me lock in. He's being very strategic. He's being very decisive, and he's back to looking like all-star Maxey. But this quote today, despite whatever happens with the Sixers in the future, gives me hope and promise that they have a franchise player. Listen to the maturity level here from Tyrese Maxey on opening up about his frustrations.
A little bit of that, and then just kind of playing with a free mind. I think early in the year I was kind of upset, or not upset, but just like worried about what's going on. There's a lot going on with injuries and all that. It just kind of sucks. But now I just kind of just had the mindset of whoever's out here is out here. You know, we got to go out here and play extremely hard and give ourselves a chance to win the game. And I know that's going to come, start with me. And I'm okay with that. I'm up for the challenge. I'm up for it. I'm blessed to be able to get up every single morning and do what I love to do. You know, the Lord has blessed me.
It's good to see Tyrese get his swagger back a little bit, you know, but now the question is, as the Sixers move into this deadline, what do they do? Do they buy? Do they sell? They've won 3 in a row. Nick Nurse has unleashed the youth finally, and these guys are playing valuable minutes right now. So where do they stand? What do they do in this next week? And a big domino has dropped, obviously, in the NBA with Jimmy Butler. The Heat suspended him for a third time indefinitely. Speaking of Jimmy, here's a live look at Jimmy today. He, again, is trolling at his coffee shop. Here's a video.
You're currently unemployed. You just say that? You are currently unemployed, so your card doesn't work, sir? Sorry.
So Jimmy's laughing. They're telling him he's unemployed. He's not playing for the Heat. And, you know, real quick before I jump into more of the news here, I just want to say one quick thing about Jimmy Butler. Obviously, you know, a lot of us loved him here in Philly. We never thought he should have left. The Sixers shouldn't have let him walk, etc. And I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole of why the ratings are down this season and all that. But Jimmy, you got to wake up, bro. You have to grow up a little bit. You're 35 years old. You are demanding a max contract. And when you look at the Miami Heat, they are essentially screwed. You could talk about the elevation of Tyler Hero. You could talk about the way Bam's playing and some of these other young cats. But the Heat have essentially been, what, a 4th, 5th seed all season long? And Jimmy Butler just wakes up one day and is like, you know what? I quit. I'm not going to show up. And now, you know, at practice, they tell him he's not going to be starting, and he just quits on the team. So, you know, I just think we're at a weird point in NBA terms with player entitlement. And I just think that there's a reason why a lot of people are disinterested in the product. And one of the reasons is because of this. Like, what Jimmy's doing right now is like if James Harden and Ben Simmons had a baby, and he's essentially just quit. And I think he has unrealistic expectations for telling a team that they have to pay him, you know, a 4-year max contract, 50, 60, 70 million a year till he's 39, you know. And there was one team interested, Memphis. He said, I don't want to go there. I'll go anywhere but Memphis. I mean, that's a team who's climbing up in the West, really good young nucleus. They could be a playoff contender this year. And Jimmy says, no, I want to go to Phoenix. Let me dye my hair and do all the other stuff I did. So I just think it's gotten to a point where the team is getting screwed. I think if the Sixers were involved here, the NBA would have already stepped in. But Adam Silver has to do something about this because, again, it's just kind of, you know, soiling the product a little bit. But nonetheless, Jimmy Butler is going to get traded because the Miami Heat, if you just listen to their press conferences, they can't even stand the vibes anymore. And it sucks. It sucks for a guy who took them to 2 finals and is probably one of the most liked players in their franchise in the last, 10, 15 years. And that's saying a lot. But anyway, the Heat are now back engaged with the Warriors and the Suns on a potential Jimmy Butler trade. But then a new domino came in after this Shams report yesterday. And here is Vince Goodwill on if the Sixers could be a silent, sneaky suitor here.
Quietly could be a suitor for Jimmy Butler, and a Paul George for Jimmy, sort of straight up, I don't think they make exactly the same, but theoretically it would be a Jimmy for Paul George swap. I believe I've heard this, that Joel Embiid, who still loves Jimmy Butler, is pushing for them to reacquire Jimmy Butler, knowing that Jimmy is out there. But here's the other side of that, Jay Adonde. Paul George was told by management or ownership, we wouldn't trade you year one of this deal.
So it looks like Vince Goodwill's show here is called Good Word. Well, guess what? There is no good word in the NBA. It's a business. And even if Sixer ownership promised Paul George they wouldn't trade him, results are results. They have to do what's best for the franchise. But going back to this, Joel Embiid sneakily recruiting Paul George. This is the same guy back in the offseason who continued to press that and said, Joel's trying to get Jimmy. He's trying to get Jimmy. And he kept pushing this rumor. He's a writer for Yahoo Sports. I'm not saying his credibility or his reporting is true or not. I don't know. But, it did come out, right? Joel went on TV with Paul George. He side-eyed him. He wanted PG. So I don't think we can dispute that. But here's the fact of the matter. A PG Jimmy Butler trade is the only way that this is going to happen. And if you look at another big trade rumor right now, De'Aaron Fox, who the Sixers are playing tonight, the Kings-Sixers game will be live for that. De'Aaron Fox wants to be traded from the Kings after that whole situation, even though they've been winning. And maybe this is a way you could kind of intermingle and combine everything into a 3, 4, 5 mega team trade. The new CBA is putting restrictions on these trades. It's harder to get them done because of the salary that's going all which ways. Really, the decider in this whole Jimmy trade idea is Bradley Beal, right? Jimmy wants to go to Phoenix. Bradley Beal doesn't want to waive his no trade clause. That's a guy who didn't even want to leave Washington, and he's a real family man, and he's probably pissed off that he knows the Suns are trying to shop him, and he wants to be a part of that. But that no trade clause, he can essentially say no to any place they try to trade him, and only where he wants to go will they be allowed to do it. So a Jimmy to Phoenix trade is likely not going to happen. So the question is, could the Sixers come back and be a potential suitor? Well, we look at Paul George this season, and a couple months ago, right, I said that I would not do it because of Paul George's defensive prowess. His numbers, shooting-wise, were down, but I said, all right, he's going to build on that. He's going to get better. But now we are halfway into the season. He's been injured about 6 times, and so far the contract is not looking that good. He's averaging 17 points per game. All we wanted was what he did last year, the year before, right? 22, 23 points per game. Yeah, his 3-point percentage has upped a bit from 33 to 36, but still around league average. Last year he was at 41. That's what this team needs, and we have only seen it in short glimpses and windows. So the question is, should the Sixers try to get out of this contract? Yes. Yes, they should, because, again, Paul George still hasn't played that many games, and you got to pay this guy for the next 3 years. But how I look at it is, at this point, I would do it. I mean, I've always liked Jimmy over PG. I just didn't like, the injury history of Jimmy Butler and the way he's acting. And I know people are going to come back to my statement here and say, well, why would you want to trade for Jimmy then? He's a locker room cancer. Look at what he's doing to disrupt. Well, here's the thing. That actually could be a good thing for Philly, because if they trade for Jimmy Butler and they bring him in, you look at the salaries, all right? Paul George making $49 million. You look at Jimmy Butler making about 49. It's a perfect swap. You bring Jimmy Butler in. Let's say he comes to Philly and pulls the, hey, I don't want to play card. Well, guess what? Go home and sit. It's not like the Sixers are probably going to win a championship this year anyway. So then Jimmy Butler has a $52 million player option. And if Jimmy wants to opt into that and threaten the Sixers to trade him, well, guess what? He's going to have to sit there for another entire year, get another year older and not play. And I just don't see that happening. But I do think that Jimmy would come back and entertain playing with his best friend, Joel Embiid. But nonetheless, it gives the Sixers a lot of leverage, and it gets them out of having to pay Paul George for the next 3 seasons at $51, $54, $57 million. So at this point, I actually think it would be a smart trade. But here's the issue. Pat Riley, Miami, they're looking at this going, why in the world, if I don't want to pay Jimmy Butler, am I going to pay Paul George? Unless you throw in, I don't know, Jared McCain or a nice young pick or some future draft capital. And I just don't see Daryl Morey and the Sixers doing that. So the way to get this involved, it would have to be a bigger trade. You look at the Aaron Fox, who we just talked about. He's making 35. That's a tough contract. So there'd have to be more salary involved. Maybe Paul George could get rerouted to a third team and Miami would get young draft picks from somebody and Jimmy Butler would come to Philly. That's really the only way I see this happening. It would have to be an insane, like probably 4, 5, 6 team trade. But again, with all the logistics, it's very hard to see this happening. So I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's actually any rumblings right now. If there was a way for the Sixers to do it, I would. I do think Maxey, Jimmy, and Joel would be an interesting dynamic. And again, it would allow the Sixers to get out of this window that, you know, you're paying old players. You got all these old guys on the roster. We see what these young cats are doing right now. We see the turnaround just in the vibe of the team. And if you can continue to allow those guys to get minutes this season and build on that, especially going into next year, I think it makes it a whole lot better. But those are my thoughts. Give me yours down below in the comments. If you're the Sixers at the deadline, do you try to get in the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes? Give me your thoughts. Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.